When you hear George Lucas's name, your mind immediately goes to Star Wars. And that makes sense. He created a whole new universe with its own mythology and history. If a filmmaker is interested in world building, George Lucas should be on the top of their list. But what's unique about George Lucas goes far beyond Star Wars. So what could filmmakers today learn from him? I want you to visualize your most ambitious dream project. The one film you really want to make. Next, imagine all the obstacles you face right now in today's world. Next, imagine your ability to edit on a computer was taken away. Imagine having to shoot on film, no cheaper digital cameras, and no iPhones. A world where visual effects can't be made on your laptop. Imagine the only way you can get funding for this ambitious project is to get a studio on board. Yet no one, except you, believes in what you're creating. That was what George Lucas was facing when making Star Wars. Even after directing 2 feature films, George Lucas was turned down by Universal Studios and United Artists when he first pitched them the idea. He even had to go to the hospital during production because the stress was so overwhelming. Yet through it all, he knew he had to make this film. The result? A globally recognized franchise. One of the things filmmakers can admire about George Lucas is his perseverance, but a lot of great filmmakers have that. After all, he's not the only filmmaker who's faced obstacles. So, what is so unique about him? He didn't just go against the grain in making Star Wars at a time in American history when science fiction fit better into the dystopian category, but he also had a vision to change how films are made. He started a company called Industrial Light and Magic to work on the special effects for Star Wars. According to an interview he had back in 1977 with American Film Magazine, George Lucas stated that he purposefully avoided hiring experienced special effects artists and instead chose younger and more inexperienced ones. Why? So that he could have more control over the special effects. This decision may have seemed ludicrous at the time, yet Industrial Light and Magic would eventually revolutionize the film industry. Now, you can create visual effects on your computer. It takes less time and money to make a film today. George Lucas was never satisfied with what was the current way of doing things. He always wanted to explore new ways that were easier and more efficient. This was the type of filmmaker he wanted to be. When he made the last 2 Star Wars prequels, he wanted to shoot on digital camera. He felt that if a technology that was cheaper and easier to work with was available, why not use it? Of course, this came with a fair amount of criticism. There were cinema lovers who believed that digital filmmaking was not real filmmaking. Now, most movies today are shot on digital. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with shooting on film. I think films shot on actual film look great. My point is that George Lucas wasn't afraid to take the risk of doing something he believed in, something different, despite many in his orbit disagreeing with him. Think about his push for CGI in filmmaking and the pushback he got for supporting it. This may seem like second nature now, but there was a time where CGI was thought to be a threat to artists. And now look at how far we've come. Using CGI for visual effects is now standard and respected. But even when making the prequel films, George Lucas wasn't exclusively using the new technology of the day. In fact, he used traditional effects by having his team create various miniature sets for the films. Although a futurist, we can see that he still had respect for the old way of doing things. We're facing big changes in the film industry today as artificial intelligence gets better and better. So what would George Lucas say about it? Is AI any different from the technology he pushed for only a few decades ago? Well, we don't have to guess, because he's spoken about it. In May of 2024, George Lucas sat down with Brute and was asked about his opinion on AI. George said that AI is inevitable, and then he said, and I quote, "It's like saying, I don't believe these cars are gonna work. Let's just stick with the horses." And you say, yeah, you can say that, but that isn't the way the world works. Now, before you rush to judgment, rest assured that if he were still making films today, he would not create AI slop. Just because a technology is available doesn't mean you have to use it for everything, especially not if it replaces a human talent. His balanced approach has always been to use technology to make it easier for filmmakers to be creative, not replace their creativity. I think this should be the approach of the industry moving forward. Embrace change, but still have love and respect for the old ways. I think it's also worth mentioning the phrase, "What's old is new again." George may have turned Yoda from a puppet into pixels, but when Rian Johnson made The Last Jedi, he brought Yoda back, and Yoda was a puppet again. Embracing change is never permanent. There is always a hunger to go back in time, to revive what we once thought would be gone forever. And it's not a matter of if, but when. It's a natural cycle that repeats itself time and time again. So in summary, what can filmmakers today learn from George Lucas? You don't have to agree with him on any particular topic. However, he does show filmmakers that while the industry is going one way, they don't have to be afraid to go in a different direction. There are plenty of great filmmakers worth mentioning, but what's different about George is that he could embrace change in a positive way. He stood firm in his vision, and he developed an ability to see things in a way other filmmakers could not. Being a great filmmaker is one thing. Daring to change the way movies are made is something else entirely. Doing both earns a special spot in film history. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. As always, feel free to comment down below and tell me what topics you would like me to cover next. Until next time.